Hi all of you, welcome back. So continuing with our mastering course discussion on periodontics, the next topic I'm going to discuss is two very important theories on child psychology which many students have got problem with understanding, and one of which has been very recently asked in INI-CET, so you have to understand it a little bit. Before going any further, if anyone has got any confusion between Dental Amaze Academy and what is Dental Next Academy, basically it's the same institution, only thing is the platform is different for two different type of audiences. Dental Amaze Academy is for pass outs and interns for preparing for NEET MDS, and Dental Next Academy is a platform for BDS ongoing students, ongoing BDS students to prepare for the exam which many of you are aware of, next exam, national exit test, which is probably to be introduced very soon. So you'll be having a next exam. If you don't know, please inquire with your college. It's going to be very much soon introduced. Those who are doing internship and those who are going to write NEET exam, do it quickly, because if next comes, then it is going to be a little bit more, more into the clinical perspective type of questions. So even NEET pattern is going into that direction only. If you just see the previous NEET exam, it's in that direction only. Another small controversy regarding next exam is that if you want to get a license in India, after studying in India, you have to write the next exam. Unlike before, you just pass out, you start your clinic, it will not work out that way. So next exam is going to be very crucial, and based on the next exam only you'll be getting license, as well as you'll be getting your PG seats. PG qualifying exam will be next, and there won't be any NEET. So that is what is next exam academy for. It's for ongoing BDS students, where the training foundation course is being given year wise, first year students, second year students, third year students, and so on. Dental Amaze Academy focuses on the pass outs and interns, where entire subject is being taught to you in one particular year. So let's start. So there are two theories we are going to discuss today. What are they? One is cognitive theory by Jean Piaget. Cognitive theory by Jean Piaget. Many students have got some confusion with what is egocentrism, what is animism, all those things. So we'll discuss them today. So this is basically the Jean Piaget say that is a child is thinking. That is majorly related to the child. Whereas the theory of adolescent egocentrism, it's a kind of modification of cognitive theory by Jean Piaget, given by David Elkind, and this is basically kind of adolescent egocentrism. You can see that there a adolescent standing there in front with some kind of an ego behavior, just how you can remember. And like the cognitive theory will tell you the child is a thinking human. So let's come to the question first. So this is how we do. We just discuss a question. We'll just give you a question and we'll discuss the basics on that, understand that. Just to remind you all, we also have a very detailed comprehensive course where each and every topic is discussed in detail as theories. Even the child psychology, every child psychology is being discussed in detail and all. So this is just a question discussion, especially those questions which are a little confusing for all of you. Now, so the theory of adolescent egocentrism, the question is improper oral hygiene leading to enamel decalcification and gingivitis. Improper oral hygiene leading to enamel decalcification and gingivitis in an adolescent patient. In an adolescent patient during orthodontic treatment is considered to be which type of adolescent behavior? Which type of adolescent behavior? So this was a very recent question from INI-CET, and this is a picture which they might give you in the question. There was no picture, just gave you this picture. And many times, many students, they see this picture and this question, they don't know, they think that, I don't know this question right away. They don't think on it. So this is a picture given, and the options were imaginary audience, egocentrism, animism, and personal fable. The answer for this particular question is personal fable. Now, why we'll discuss, and for that we need to discuss the theory of adolescent egocentrism, and then we'll come back to this particular question and discuss it again. So to quickly start with this particular theory, some basics on this theory, which was given by David Elkind, the person called David Elkind, and What is egocentrism basically? You can see a person is looking at another person but in front of a mirror. That means it's difficulty in understanding other people's perspective. Okay, difficulty in understanding the perspective of others. Okay, you don't understand other perspective. You see only you. You understand only your perspective. That is basically egocentrism. We'll come to details of this as we go on. So this picture will tell you, just see your perspective, not others. Okay. Now let's understand this theory. It was drawn from the formal operational stage of Piaget's theory on cognitive development, which we'll see next. Okay, because many of you are aware of this Piaget's theory of cognitive development. So I thought like we'll discuss this first and then connect this to the Piaget. But now, if you are ever written your NEET MDS exam, you know that there are 4 stages: sensory motor stage, then there is pre-operational stage, then there is concrete operational, and then formal operational. I'll come to this, but this one, that is the formal operational stage, is the last stage. So it is a kind of modification of this stage. So this in itself can be a question for you, okay? And even the scientists and all. So formal operational stage, this is a stage where there is people construct imaginary situations. So this is the principle of this particular theory, imaginary situations. You're going to see lots of imaginary situations in this particular question, okay? Now, so basically, as a result of adult egocentrism, I told you what egocentrism is. As a result of adolescent egocentrism, 2 major imaginary situations, mental constructions, the adolescents make. What are they? One is imaginary audience and second is personal fable. So we're going to come to that. Okay, that is what the answer of our question is. Imaginary audience and personal fable. And there is further modification of this with 2 more stages we're going to discuss next in our next slide. So let's come to a little bit of details of the stages. As I've told you, the first one is imaginary audience. I'll explain to you each stage. The first stage is imaginary audience. Then you have got personal fable. Then a little bit of kind of confusing modifications of this, that is optimistic bias and illusion of vulnerability. So what are the key areas you have to focus here when we are discussing this theory? The first one is imaginary audience. Okay, the adolescents think of some imaginary audience. That is this others. Okay, that is the audience is others. So what is it? That is the adolescents think that they are being constantly watched and evaluated by others. So they create an audience, an imaginary audience. Okay, that is they are constantly being watched and evaluated by others. Now, personal fable. They think that they are unique and very special. Okay, they are unique, they are special, they are something beyond law, they don't care about laws, all those things. So that is what we are going to discuss our problem. Okay, I'll connect them very soon. Now, what is optimistic bias? Optimistic bias is that it's a modification of personal fable where the adolescent think that, or they overestimate, that is what is optimism, overestimate the likelihood of positive events happening. They think that only positive things will happen to them. Or, we go a little further, they underestimate the likelihood of negative things. They think that the negative things will not happen to them. Okay. Then, the illusion of vulnerability, that is a kind of illusion that they think that they're immune to the harm or any danger. Even if they drive very fast, accident is not going to happen to them. And that bad things only happen to others. Okay. The same thing, immune to harm or danger, and only bad things happen to others only. Okay, so what are the mnemonics? How can you learn this? The mnemonics is, I am personally optimistic due to illusions. These are the 4 terms which you have to keep in your mind. Okay, so that is, I am is imaginary. Okay, I am is imaginary there. Personal fable, that is personally. Okay, optimistic, that is optimistic bias, and finally illusions. We'll come to a little more details of the stages, so don't worry, we'll learn them once again. Okay, so remember this, what are the 4 stages, and our question is dependent on this area, that is personal fable. So let us discuss a little bit on each stages, starting with imaginary audience. Now, what is imaginary audience? This picture will tell you, okay, what imaginary audience is. What is this person thinking? Are they looking at me? Is there something on my face? Okay, they create an imaginary audience. Okay, so that is they're constantly thinking that they're constantly the focus of others. attention and scrutiny even when they are not, in fact. Okay, that is, they're watched and judged by this. That is what is imaginary audience. So the term imaginary audience was coined by the same person who coined or who found out the theory, that is David Elkind. Now it can have both positive and negative effects. At least remember the stages, even if you don't remember this. That is, positive is that they're aware, they're how to present themselves to others, because they are thinking that others are looking at them, they'll be always being visualized. So this, they present themselves good. Okay, and there'll be some sense of empathy and consideration for others. Okay, exactly opposite of egocentrism. But what the other side? Excessive self-consciousness, social anxiety, fear of being judged, rejected. So you don't need to learn what is imaginary audience. This picture will be more than enough for you. Let's come to the next, that is, what is personal fable? Again, I don't care, I don't want to hear. Okay, nothing bad is going to happen to me. I'm special and I will go my own way. Okay, this is what the adolescents think, and some in adulthood even retain this, like thumb sucking is being retained by very small children for adult or even a childhood age. Like this, some people even retain this kind of behavior. So this is a correct answer, and we'll see why. What is the word meaning of fable? That is a short story, a personal short story. Okay, or a false story, which is, or false improbable account of something very false which they believe in themselves. That is what is the fable means. So it's a kind of personal fable. So what does it mean? That they are unique and special. They are unique and special, and illusion that they're above rules, discipline. So this is the key for us. Okay, they are above the rules. So what is the rule for an orthodontist? You should clean your teeth well, so that you can prevent caries and gingivitis. So they think, due to this particular behavior, they believe that they are above the rules and disciplines. Okay, and the laws doesn't apply to them. So let's come to this. Okay, so they are immune to same thing. They are immune to the negative consequences of their action. That negative things, even if they don't believe, follow the rules, negative things doesn't happen to them. So we'll come to this as a further more descriptive in the other stages. Okay, but before that we need to understand this. Okay, they start using drugs, yes, because they don't want to be follow the rules. Now this is a question: improper oral hygiene leading to enamel decalcification in an adolescent patient. Okay, that is because they don't want to follow the rules of an orthodontist. Isn't it very, very simple and direct to understand that they don't want to follow the rules of orthodontist. So during orthodontic treatment. So this is basically the concept of the personal fable. Okay, so let's come to the question once again. Just very simple: improper oral hygiene leading to enamel decalcification, gingivitis in an adolescent patient during orthodontic treatment is considered to be which type of adolescent behavior? It is personal fable. It is not egocentrism. Yes, definitely egocentrism is the basis of this theory, but it is not basically egocentrism or animism or even imaginary audience. Imaginary audience is something that others are always thinking about me. I'm always in their observation. So let's come to the next stage. Next, let us understand what is optimistic bias. So this picture, optimism, that I'll get all the money, I'll get everything good. Okay, everything good will happen to me. That is what is the optimistic bias. That is, they are overestimating the likelihood of positive events happening to them, plus underestimating the likelihood of negative events occurring to them. What is more important is the positive events. Optimistic bias is more important with the positive events happening to them. Like what? They'll get into good college, they'll get a very high paying job, or have a very successful career than their peers. Plus negative events, less likely to have accidents or illness or failures. This is what is optimism, optimistic bias, a kind of bias. So this picture, when optimistic bias comes, this is what this picture should come to your mind. Okay, so now what next? What is the next behavior we're going to see? Illusion of vulnerability. Okay, illusion of vulnerability. Now here again, speeding for fun, illusion, vulnerable to illusion. What is that? That is, adolescents believe that they are immune to the risk of dangers. Now, everything looks very similar, isn't it? But just let me give you a clarification. Imaginary audience, understandable. Personal fable means I'm special and above laws, okay, above any law. Optimistic behavior, that is too much of positivity, too much, over positive. What is illusion of vulnerability? That is, they believe that they're immune to the risk and dangers associated with certain behaviors or situations. Like, they're immune to risk, nothing bad will happen to them. So what is this? Optimistic bias. Always positive will happen to them. This is what? Bad will not happen to them. That's why I told you here it is overestimation of positive events, not more than underestimating. But there is some overlapping, but understand this. The illusion of vulnerability tells you that they are immune to risk of dangers associated with certain behaviors. That is, negatives doesn't happen to them. Okay, now in the same question, the same question which we just discussed, if there is where you can see that there is a illusion of vulnerability, I would say that is much better correct answer. That negatives doesn't happen to them. Dental plaque, caries, gingivitis doesn't happen to them. Okay, but luckily for us, and most of the time they won't give you this confusion options altogether. Okay, example is drug use. Okay, they can use drugs, they can have risky sexual behavior, drinking and driving. So this is where the image is all about speeding for fun. They can drink and drive, they can go very fast. Negative things will not happen to them. Okay, that is, they can drink and drive, and accidents or legal problems are not, they are immune to that. Okay, they are not going to get affected by the legal problems. So let's just give some differences. Optimistic bias. So what was the, again, just quickly, I don't want to confuse you anyone. What was the short form? I'm personally optimistic due to illusion. So remember the order. Imaginary audience, personal means personal fable, optimism, illusion. Okay, optimistic bias and illusion of vulnerability. So here we could discuss the difference between optimistic bias, that is too much of positivity, and illusion of vulnerability. The difference is, one is more positive behavior, overestimating the positive behavior. Illusion of vulnerability is more about underestimating the risk of negative outcomes, underestimating negatives. Accidents will not happen to me. That is, the first one is overestimating positivity. The second one is just underestimating the negative outcomes of speeding and all those. One more thing, personal fable versus illusion of vulnerability. So again, slight difference. Illusion of vulnerability is that underestimating the risk of negative behavior. So what is personal fable? That I'm special, I'm above law, I'm above discipline. That's it, stop there. But when you think that bad things doesn't happen to me, it will happen only to other people, that is what is the illusion of vulnerability. Hope you got it. Okay, that is, I'm special and unique and above rules. I don't need to follow rules. That is personal fable. Now, bad things will not happen to me even if I don't follow rules. In strict sense, it is basically illusion of vulnerability. Okay, illusion of vulnerability. So that's by that we come to the end of the first part, which is the theory of adolescent egocentrism. Just remember these 4 pictures. Okay, imaginary audience, see the imaginary audience. Personal fable, I don't care the rules. Optimistic bias, too much of optimism and underestimating, that is illusion of vulnerability, that is underestimating the speeding or the vulnerability. Okay, let's come to the cognitive theory of Jean Piaget and understand the connection between the two. So now the cognitive theory of Jean Piaget, we have to understand what is the meaning of the term cognition. So the cognition is nothing but it's a mental process, it's a thinking process involved in acquiring knowledge, processing, storing and using information. Just this picture. Okay, it's a mental process of thinking. Basically it's thinking, cognition. Okay, you don't need to understand the word meaning and all, but just for you to make this theory much more easy, I've just said it. Okay, now what is the principle behind this theory? That's a little important for you. Okay, that is, children are active learners. This picture again, they're active learners. They understand, they construct their own understanding of the world through their experiences. That's very important to understand. Okay, they create their own experiences of the world, or they construct their understanding of the world through their experiences. Very important, this one. Okay, and this will help in their cognitive development, which occurs in stages. okay, through the development and modification of mental representations and schema. That is basically, in simple terms, children are active learners. They understand their environment, their world through experiences, and this occurs in stages. Okay, and this occurs by development, initial development of the first stages and modification of the stages from experiences. Okay, they modify, they keep on modifying their stages from their experiences, or their developmental stages from their experiences. Okay, so the key terms are here: from experiences they learn, and it occurs in stages, and this occurs by initial development and then modification of their mental representations. Basically, mental representations start to develop and then it gets modified. Okay, that is what the thing which you have to know. Now, what are the stages? This picture: sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, formal operation. I'll explain each stages. So let's understand. So first is sensory motor. The age is very important here. Then you have got pre-operational stage. Then you have got concrete operational, and finally formal operational. Age is very, very important. There's a small confusion. I'll tell you why. Sensory motor is 0 to 2 years. Okay. Then 2 to 6 years. Then you have got 6 to 11, and finally 11 to 15 or 11 to 18. Now, those who have come up with the theory of the adolescent egocentrism, which we just saw, they say that 11 to 18. But I've seen in dental reference books, it is 11 to 15. So learn 11 to 15. And not over yet. When we see some other references, 0 to 2 is fine, 0 to 2, sensory motor. But when it comes to the pre-operation, it is 2 to 6 in your references, many of yours. 2 to 7 is also possible. 6 to 11, 7 to 11 can also be possible. So study one and just know that 1 year difference is there. You don't need to study both. And please don't by heart this. Try to develop, try to revise multiple times. As I've told you previously, the photographic memory will come and you will be able to remember it. Okay, it's very, very simple. 0 to 2, 2 to 6, 6 to 11, 11 to 15. Okay, just learn it in a vertical way, not in a horizontal way. That's another way of learning for NEET MDS. Don't learn sensory motor 0 to 2, pre-operational 2 to 6, concrete operational 6 to 11, formal operation. No, that is not the way. Learn the 4 stages: sensory motor, pre, concrete, formal. You will understand this when you understand these terms. Learn that first, then 0 to 2, 2 to 6, 6 to 11, 11 to 15. Don't say me that how will I apply this to my patients if I learn it in a vertical way. Again, if you want an MDS seat, the learning process, the methodology has to be different. Once you get your PEDO MDS, you can learn it whatever way you want. The first thing is to get in your government dental college for your MDS seat. So 0 to 2, 2 to 6, 6 to 11, 11 to 15. Write it down. That's another way of learning this. Okay. Once you write it down, it will understand it better. So let's come to one by one stages a little bit. Now, as we said, the stage 1 is sensory motor stage 0 to 2, no confusion. So what is the speciality? Here, the infants develop their cognitive abilities, their thinking abilities, everything through sensory experiences. Touch something and then only they can understand. They can understand by seeing, thinking and all. Touch something or some motor activities, moving it. Okay, motor means moving it kind of abilities. And one speciality of this stage is there is object permanence. Okay, then you keep a child a toy, you remove it. Okay, we can't feel it, but children feel it. You remove it, that object remain in front of their sight and they start crying. They want it. Okay, it's there in front of their sight. You take it, they won't forget it. It's there in front of their sight and they want it. That's called object permanence. They can ask you, object permanence is seen in which stage? That is sensory motor. Okay, object permanence, how does it remain? Because they're basically using their senses, so they've touched it, so they felt it, so it remains there. Okay, so that's how you can remember, that is object permanence. Oh, this is how it represents the child holding it, the glass. Okay, so that is thinking that it is there, still there, even if you remove it, it remains there. So this is a picture which you can help. Then there is a pre-operational stage, 2 to 6 years or 2 to 7 years, so I've told you. Then that is the children develops language, by 2 to 6 they start talking. So they develop language, okay, and use some symbols to represent object and ideas. Okay, they will use some symbols. okay, to represent, even if their language is not very clear, they will make us understand by some kind of symbols. Okay, if you have seen children at this age, you will understand it better. Okay, now, however, their thinking abilities is limited to something known as egocentrism, animism, and lack of understanding of conservation. I'll come to one by one. So, but here you have to remember these three terms. I'll tell you later on how to remember it. Okay, how to remember it. So animism is nothing but this particular children thinking that the doll has life and he's checking the heartbeats. That is what is animism. Thinking that non-live object has life. That's called animism. Egocentrism, we already said, they just think their own way. So it is acceptable for a child at an age of 2 to 6, isn't it? Think their own way. So egocentrism, lack of understanding of conservation, we'll see in the next stage, because here there is lack of understanding of conservation. Next stage, that is the concrete operational. We have understanding of conservation, so we'll see there what the understanding of conservation is. So once again, sensory and motor experiences, there is object permanence. In stage 2, there is language, symbols, okay, language, using of language, they use symbols, and egocentrism, animism is the key here, okay, egocentrism, animism is the key here. Stage 3, that is concrete operational. So what does it mean that a child is given two different glasses, isn't it, two different glasses, but having same amount of liquid, okay, same amount of liquid. So the child is able to understand that though the shape of the two glasses are different, the amount of liquid is same. This is a speciality of the stage 3, which is concrete operational. Whereas if you give a child at this stage, pre-operational stage, he will not be able to understand. Okay, he'll say that two different glasses have got two different amount of water. What they're doing is, the experiment, I'll tell you, what they're doing is they just take this glass of water first, okay, and they take another glass, empty glass, and they pour this water into this particular glass. Okay, so then the child says, okay, both of them have got the same water only, but the child at stage 2 will not be able to recognize it. That is what is the principle of conservation, that is conserving. So it happens in the age of 6 to 11. We already seen child becomes more logical, that is what it is, mathematical problems solvable and able to perform mental operations on concrete objects. I'll tell you what concrete objects are, just simply physical objects which they can touch, okay. So they think logically with some reasoning, there is some reasoning to them, they know that they think logically with some reasoning, and they're able to understand the principle of conservation, same thing. So here the key things which you have to note down is basically the age, definitely, and there is some logical reasoning, logical mathematical reasoning. There is no moral reasoning. Moral reasoning will come in the next stage, okay. So that is concrete objects, concrete operational stage, okay. Concrete objects, so what is one concrete object? This, okay, glass. So remember it like that. So concrete operational. Before that we had pre-operational and sensory motor, very simple, sensory and motor experiences. Then concrete objects they are able to recognize, that is principle of conservation, okay, and they think mathematically with some reasoning, some logical reasoning and not moral reasoning. So what is moral reasoning? We'll come to that. Next is formal operational stage, which is between the age of 11 to 15. In this stage, the child becomes capable of abstract thinking of moral things, like justice, moral reasoning. That is the child now see. The child thinks, one is this picture, the glass is empty or full, kind of, abstract thinking. Rather than just simply two glasses, if you just show them by pouring, they are same. Instead of that, he can think a little bit more in depth. Mature moral reasoning means now, imagine at this stage, that is anywhere between 11, 15, 18 and all, if the child is going to school and the child finds out that his friend is dealing with drugs, okay, what happens in the previous stage? Logical reasoning, okay, with some basic reasoning. You will think that he's my friend, I shouldn't report. But here comes stage 4, where formal operational, where there is mature moral reasoning with justice, abstract thinking, everything. He'll say that, no, this is not good for the society, I will report this, I don't care even if he's my friend or not. Okay, the person who have reached an age of 11 to 50, this age. Okay, but usually we don't see it. I don't know why. Okay, to some extent, still the drugs community is very much active. So, what is basically animism? I've already told you. Just a quick review. Animism is a cognitive bias or belief that attributes life or consciousness to inanimate objects like this, which you can see there in the picture. Okay, like rock, toys, everything. Anything can have life, they think. Okay, and that is the child becomes too much imaginative, but as the child develops, it just goes away. Okay, now what is egocentrism? We have seen the picture. Egocentrism is that when individual has difficulty in seeing things from another person's point of view. I'm just going quickly because I've explained this to you already. More importantly, this term is coined by whom? They'll ask. By Jean Piaget. Okay, Jean Piaget. That is the tendency to view the world exclusively from one's own perspective. And this persists in adolescence. Remember I told you, it can persist in adolescence or adulthood. And that is where the theory of the adolescent egocentrism comes into play. Where is egocentrism seen? Egocentrism is there in the pre-operational stage. Okay, pre-operational stage. Now, if this persists, egocentrism persists, okay, even when there is lots of imaginations in the formal operational stage. Okay, that is what the connection is. If the stage 2 egocentrism persists, I'll tell you how to remember all these terms, okay. Even in stage 4, okay, where the child starts too much of imagining things out, okay, with lots of mature moral reasonings, okay, then what happens is that this can lead to all the stages which we saw in our theory of adolescent egocentrism. Please note that. Egocentrism is there in stage 2. Egocentrism is there in stage 2. But the theory was a modification of stage 4. Why? Because in the formal operation is where the imagination happens. So if in this formal operational stage, egocentrism is persistent, then you get various stages of various stages of adult egocentrism. Okay. Then what is concrete object? Again, in operational stage, the concrete operational stage. Just to remember, okay, it's a physical object which can directly perceive through sensors, toys, balls, everything. Concrete. Okay, it is at this stage 6 to 11 where children are able to classify objects based on characters, sort them out and all those. So forget about all these things. What is principle of conservation? Again, the 2 glasses of water. I don't want to repeat this everything. Okay, it's all there. Okay, it's all understood. 2 glasses of water which you get, and you can differentiate that both of them is the same. Okay, that is principle of conservation. You're understanding. Now this is more important. This is where I'm going to discuss, and this is where really which will make you understand the difference between each of it. Okay, so we have got sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, formal operational. Okay, easy to remember. Sensory motor, you know it. Okay, pre-operational, concrete operational, formal operational. Formal is where you start wearing formal dresses. Okay, 11 to 18 in adulthood. Before that there is pre-operational, and in between there is a concrete object there, okay, where the child can feel. Okay, so sensory motor, there is definitely an age of 0 to 2. They can ask you, there is stranger anxiety. Okay, there is object permanence. We already said at this stage the child is touching things with senses and all. So there is object permanence. Object remains even after if it is removed from the site. Now pre-operational 2 to 6. This is an AIMS question in 2017. Many of this has been asked as questions. Okay, so pre-operational, how to remember it? It is pre-sale. Okay, pre-sale, before sale, that is pre-sale. You know sale, right? So scientist, animism, language development, egocentrism, that is sale. So pre-sale, you remember that pre-sale. Okay, pre-sale, that is the pre-operational stage. You have got a sale. Okay, then concrete operational. You know this concrete operational, very, very simple. That is, there is thinking logically, but when you come to the formal operation, there is moral reasoning, mature moral reasoning. Here there is logical reasoning, mathematics. Okay, mathematics and logical reasoning, they form hypotheses, so basically related to something which is much more related to studies. Okay, so egocentrism goes away, that is understands others' point of view. But now if it is persisting here, you get the four theories or four stages of theories of adolescent egocentrism. Okay, here you have got mature reasoning, imagination. Yeah, that is what I said you. If imagination persists along with egocentrism, you get the theory of adolescent egocentrism. Okay, peer influence. Now the orthodontics. Your friend saying you that, see, when your teeth is very much bulged out, your smile is not good, your nose is little turned here and there. So all these can influence you. So basically the key area is sale. Okay, remember this. Before sale you have got object permanence and everything. After sale you have got this logical reasoning, and after that there is mature reasoning and imagination, peer influence. So if you can remember this chart, it's all done. So that's all about the various stages. I'll just stop it here, but quickly just rushing through what was the basics. Which stage was the theory of the adolescent egocentrism which we considered? That is a formal operational stage, where if in case egocentrism persists, you have got four stages where I am personally optimistic due to illusions. Okay, imaginary audience, remember the picture there. Personal fable, remember I don't care the rules, and thus the answer for this. Optimistic bias, too much of expectations. Illusion of vulnerability, don't understanding or underestimating the vulnerability, the probability of accidents and all those. Okay, the differences I've already said you. Cognitive development, basically the principle is that the child is an active learner. He learns from experiences, and you get stages which gets modified. Okay, various stages, that is much better than that. I'll explain it through the picture out there. Okay, here it is. One thing you have to remember, the most important stage for you is pre-operational, where you have to remember sale. But the second stage, above that you have got object permanence, stranger anxiety. Below that you have got the logical reasoning, and below that you have got mature reasoning. This much if you know, remaining will come as photographic memory. So I'll just stop it here. See you in the next class. Goodbye.